Good evening and welcome to the Patriots Report. I'm Cody Higley, and tonight we're joined by Robert Landon, and our very special guest for this evening is Tim Mooney, who is running for Marion County Commissioner in the Republican primary that will be held on May 5th. So, Tim, welcome to the Patriot Report.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, folks, we had a little bit of technical difficulties here tonight. So Tim is just going to be on the telephone, and we had to make it work here. So unfortunately, you won't be able to see his handsome face on the screen. You're stuck with a couple gargoyles like you usually are, me and Robert. So Tim, how you doing, man? I know it's been one heck of a campaign season, I'm sure. So, how are things in Mooney land?
Well, I've had a rough day today. I think I was telling you earlier, I lost one of my pets that I had for 13 years. And that's always tough. And that's kind of on the forefront of my mind. But right now, I think the campaigning and everything's important, but something like this happens and it kind of changes your perspective a little bit. But hey, we'll get through it. It's just one of those things. But I'm really happy with the campaign. I think the last time I campaigned 2 years ago, when I ran and I was running for Andy Applefeller's seat, I think I learned that I was struggling with getting votes in the city. So I've tried to work on the city, a lot more. I did some mailings and doing some door knockers. So, I think that's going to help me in the long run. So I feel a lot better about that. But I think, the city is where I needed most of my improvement on my campaigning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear. Was it a dog? I must not have been part of that. That must have been with Robert, maybe, or. But yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that, and my condolences to you and your family.
Yeah, that's pets are something that you love them, and then they break your heart. So.
Oh yeah. We went through that a couple years ago. We had a dog that died after 12 years, and yeah, it's very tough indeed. But
yes, it is.
You know, the campaign, like you said, you had a really good showing in 2024 when you challenged Andy Applefeller uh, in the Republican primary. I think the breakdown was roughly 53 to 46%. So now you're targeting the city. And what does that strategy look like, Tim? I mean, do you focus on particular precincts, like maybe the Sixth Ward, which has by far, hands down, the highest turnout, or do you look at all the different wards and target the Republican voters throughout the city? What does that strategy look like when you're running for Marion County Commissioner?
Yes, for me, I think if you look at the wards, the first through the sixth ward, obviously the sixth ward is the one that you probably need to carry or, get a majority of the vote in. So when I did my mailers, I hit Republican households basically, and I did the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth wards. So that's what I hit with my mailers. And I seem to get a pretty good response on that so far. Also, I think for the city, I got in the town money saver, and that's about approximately, I think, 23,000 is at least what they tell you, what gets out there to the public. So I got into that, and of course that hits all over. So, I feel like I've not looked at other wards and just turned my back on it, but I tried to get information out to everybody so everybody can make a decision. And hey, I'm all for it. If somebody wants to, vote Republican this time, I'm all for it. So if they decide which parties or go independent, that's great. But so I think that's where the city, because the last time I did not do that, I kind of counted on, I think, my signage and people that I knew in the city to get the word out, and it just was not enough. So I think, you look at your weak areas, and then, you kind of build on that. So I think that's, the 6 wards definitely the most important, but I don't want to forget the other ones either. They're justly important also.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, you've got 4 people that are in this race, and geographically, you have you and Stuyvesant hailing from Clarendon Township. You have Christy Neff, who now is a resident of Marion Township. For many years, she lived in the city of Marion. And I think she was originally a Pleasant Township, I think. No, I think she grew up in Marion Township too. She might have been Pleasant. I don't know. I know she
Yeah,
went
she
to
went to
Pleasant.
Pleasant, didn't she?
Yeah, she
Yeah,
graduated
I
from
think she
Pleasant. And
graduated.
then,
Yes, I think she graduated from Pleasant, if
Yeah.
I remember.
yeah. And then Jason Schauber, who was former Marion City Councilman representing the 3rd Ward. Um, does it make it more difficult when you're going up when there's 4 people in the race as opposed to when it was just you versus Applefeller?
Yes, I totally agree that, when you have 4 people running, and, we're all the same party. So
Yeah.
this isn't like a Republican running against a Democrat. We all should have some of the same ideology. And I think, when it almost becomes a popularity contest at some point, because, with all of us being Republicans and 4 of us running, that the vote is going to be watered down. It's not going to be, I doubt if anybody gets, 53% of the vote or 55% of the vote. I kind of doubt that, but
Right.
I think it makes it a lot harder. And this is also, I've had some thoughts about, how many people should run, I think, in a primary. But, anybody can run. And so I don't want anybody to think, somebody else is going to pick and choose. But I think to have 4 running for one position really waters the vote down. So, I don't know how to take it because I've never run. Well, I did one time. I should take that back. The first time I ran for Clarendon Township trustee in 2007, there were 3 other candidates that were running for the position. But of course, that's nonpartisan. But, and I ended up being fortunate enough to win that. So, yeah, I guess I've done it before, but it still waters down the vote. So I guess that's my answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that it would pose some unique challenges to have so many from your own party that are in the same race. And honestly, I mean, you can look at prior election data, precinct by precinct, and I have no clue how this is going to pan out. I really don't. I mean, you could say, well, is everybody going to be around that 25%, give or take, and then it's just going to be a razor thin margin? Or is there going to be that whoever wins, are they going to crest 30%, 35%, and somebody's going to perform uh, much worse than that 25% mark? I don't know. I mean, do you think that the field, I'm not asking for you to to say anything in particular, Tim. Uh, but do you think everybody's going to be kind of grouped together pretty close, or do you think that there'll be a little bit more of a
Well,
margin?
I honestly believe, I do think it will be grouped together fairly close because, every name that's out there, Kenny Stuyvesant, he's done it. He did it for 12 years. So, he has name recognition, and the people that don't study politics or keep up on politics, a lot of those people they see a name and they'll vote for it. But I think, Jason being in the city council, Jason's has name recognition also. Christie, I think Christie with having all the work that she's done in the city and working for what is it? I'm sorry, I'm just drawing a blank. Yeah, Habitat for Humanity. I'm sorry, and so she has very good name recognition. So, I think, and then myself, I with the county and me being a part of the township association for Marion County for all these years, 19 years, I think I've got a lot of name recognition in the county, and but yeah, I think. Everybody's probably, I think it's probably going to be closer than what people think. I don't think somebody's just going to run away with it. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see anybody really running away with it.
Yeah.
Do I have you?
Yep.
Are we good? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
I guess, so did that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great answer. I think that, Cody, are you still with us?
Did we lose Cody?
He might be having some technical issues. But yeah, no, that makes sense to me. You each have your own sphere of influence per se. So, like you said, you're out in the county. You have Christy, who had a lot of city support and is now in the township, and Schaber has his own cluster of support in the city, and then you have you and Stuyvesant are the county guys, like you said, but you also, both of you have been around for a while. You're well known. You both have name recognition in your own respects too. So that's what makes this really interesting. This isn't like somebody came out of the blue and we don't really know one or two of the candidates. All four of the candidates are fairly well known in their own respects. So I think you're absolutely right. This does make it a very interesting race. What do you think separates you from the group, based off of experience, based off of values, based off of whatever it is you want to share that you believe separates you from the crowd?
I think what separates me is just the fact that I have spent so many years in public service, but then I go back to my own roots. And at 22 years of age, I started my own business, which I'm still running to this day. I'm going into my 48th year. Yesterday was my 47th year. So I'm at the same place, and I've been a businessman, self-employed for that since I was 22 years old. I'm now 69 years old. So, I've had to meet payroll. I've had to pay bills, and I've had to pay bills when things were tight. And so I've run a business. And then also, I think at that point, when I was in my early 20s, I got on village council for the village of Caledonia, because my business is in the south edge of Caledonia there. So with living in the village and having a business there and a home, I want to make sure that the village was run properly. So I got on village council, and I spent 6 years there. And then after that, I was 4 years zoning inspector for the village of Caledonia. So I got a taste of appropriations and setting up budgets and working within the budgets. And I do know with the village of Caledonia, money was tight. So we had to get very creative with our funding to make ends meet. So I've been at that end of it. And then, later on, I was still running my business. I ran for the Clarendon Township trustee position and was fortunate enough to get that, which I'm into my 19th year of now. So I feel like what separates me from the others is the fact that I kind of started out at the bottom, and kind of, I feel like I've worked my way up to this position. I think I have a lot to offer. I have a lot of connections, business wise, and, you know, public and private sector. So, you know, I would say that it's just my overall experience and my work ethic. I'm not saying these others don't have a good work ethic. My work ethic has been proven through 47, going into my 48th year of business. So, you know, it's a lot of hours, a lot of time. So it's just, I think we're all good candidates. I just feel like I might be able to use, you know, what I've learned over all these years and be able to use it for the county commissioner's position.
Absolutely. That's a great answer. We got Cody back on. Sorry, we had a little technical glitch there. So Cody, where we left off was he was just telling us what separates him from the pack. You know, starting out at village council. Is that right, Tim?
That's correct.
Village council, running the business, been in it for, you know, better part of 45, 48 years. So that's where we're at, Cody. Just kind of talking about what separates him from the pack.
Yeah, and I live in the same neck of the woods as Mr. Mooney, so I can attest. You know, you have a very good reputation amongst the folks here in northeastern Marion County, and that's just not my opinion or my perception of things. You can see it in the results from that 2024 primary election. You did very well in Clarendon Township, Tully Township, and Scott Township, the areas surrounding the village of Caledonia. So I think that's a testament. You know, if you're running for election, you better win your home turf, right, Tim?
I would say if you don't win your home turf, I don't think you're going to win the other turf. So, yeah, yes, right. I believe in that.
Right.
Well, one thing I got to say, Cody, speaking of that is, you know, and we've not endorsed anybody on the show. That's not, you know, I always say every time we've interviewed any of the candidates, I always like to say something nice about them, and especially with my experience with them. And one thing I'd say about you, Mr. Mooney, is my time going back on Central and Executive Committee in the Republican Party with you when you were there. I think I've said this on our show before, that I always felt like you asked really good questions. And, you know how those meetings can go when you have, you know, 30 people in a meeting and everybody's trying to get an opinion and we're trying to decide on things. It can get pretty hairy pretty quick. And I always felt like you had these, I guess for a lack of better term, a sharpshooter question, like, hey, let's get to the heart of the matter. What's this? What's the ramifications? What's the options? And I feel like you had a way of delivery too. It was very respectful, but like you wanted to solve whatever the discussion was that we were trying to decide on. So I just wanted to mention that I could see you doing that as a county commissioner. That would probably be a good skill set I would see you bringing to the table, is the ability to ask the right questions. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, and I think that goes back to my experience level, only because I'm kind of a numbers person, and I'm kind of a black and white person. You know, it's either right or wrong. There's no gray area. So I don't like gray areas. I think probably attorneys create gray areas because it keeps them in a job. And I'm not disrespecting the attorneys and the judges and things like that. But, you know, I need black and white answers. Also, when money's tight, you have to ask the right questions and, to make things work. So, yeah, and I used to you deal with the personal things, not only the financial things, but, somebody comes in and says, hey, I've got a problem with the neighbor's dog barking at 3 a.m, and that might sound a little funny, but, people have these issues. And so, when somebody would come to me with a problem, the first thing I would ask them is, have you thought about a solution to that problem? Because if somebody has a problem, they're kind of thinking, well, hey, how are we going to take care of this? What are we going to do? And so if they can convey that to me, then maybe I can help them in a solution. So I think the more question you ask and more direct you are with those questions, you kind of get around the fluff. I'll call it the fluff. It's,
Right.
it's just get to the point and let's get that taken care of, or see if we can't correct it and move on. So I think being direct is the best way to be. Mm-hmm. And that goes back when I was a football coach, and I was always very direct, with my student athletes, because I expected so much out of them, and they knew that. So, and I think there again, I go back to the experience. I've been doing this for a long time. I was doing this in the early 1980s. Mm-hmm. And here we are in 2026. And so, I just feel that, over the years, I've gained knowledge, and it helps me ask the right questions. Now, I don't give the right answers all the time, but, if I can, I'll try to do my best or find out what the right answer is. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Now, Tim, you said the magic words, buddy. You said money. You said spending and also appreciation for giving it straight, black and white. Let's just jump into kind of an issue here that's facing the county, and it's the budget, man, and it's quite serious. So, 2026 budget passed with a deficit of $4.5 million, and at the time, the projected carryover was give or take 2 million. So, what is your plan to address that, especially considering that the county is already tapped out, it's maxed out on its options to increase the sales tax. It's also tapped out, maxed out on the real estate transfer taxes or the conveyance fees. What needs to be done, and what will you advocate for?
Well, I think first of all, the budgetary issues seems to be number one in everybody's mind, which I fully understand that. I think the first thing is you look, and like you say, we are tapped out. We our sales and use taxes, I think we're at 1.5%. The state gets 5.75%. So we are tapped out there. I would like to turn that back into where we could take the sales tax and have like a 0.25% cushion in there. Do a rollback on that 1.5 and make it a 1.25, and then we would have something if you do get a little rainy day fund. If you do get tight in your budget, you could reenact that other 25 or a 0.25% to bring it back up. So I think it'd be good to run with a cushion, but first of all, you've got to get things squared around. I think if you look at any budget, and I've said this before, if you look at public or private entities, when you look at any budget, what is the major outlay of your budget? Well, it's always payroll and benefits. It always is. It always will be. Mm-hmm. And people, that's what we work for. That's what people work for. And but I look at it, and first of all, and I would have to say what are essential and what's non-essential. So that's the first thing I would have to look at. So you're dealing with elected officials. So it isn't like, and I made this statement before, you don't go in and micromanage an elected official. They have their job to run their office. The only thing I can do is be an administrator. And I have to go in and say, hey, we have issues. We need to correct these issues. And here's what we need to look at. We need to look at essential and non-essential spending. And I think you just have to reel it in at that point. And, I don't think anybody wants to go in anywhere and be a hatchet man, but I think you have to look at reality and go, what's our major outlay and what's going to get us back to the point where we aren't spending more money than we're taking in. So we have to get back to that. So I hope that kind of answers that question. I think it's essential and non-essential spending is what I would have to look at first. And obviously the non-essential spending, you got to look at what, how we can correct that or reduce it.
I wish we could pull up, and maybe eventually we'll be able to do that, Robert. Pull
Yeah.
up exhibits here, because if you go to the Swamp Fox page, there's substantial research into the budget, not only of Marion County, but also comparisons between the surrounding counties and Marion County's budget expenditures.
Yeah.
And it's very clear from the data that Marion County has far exceeded its peers that surround it as far as growth in government expenses at the county level, as far as a percentage increase basis. Not only that, if you look at the number of county employees, and this apparently was brought up at a recent Marion County Commissioner meeting, and my writings on that topic were challenged by one of the sitting commissioners, actually the guy that you're going to be replacing should you win. And basically he said that it was misinformation, a bunch of malarkey. Well, I'll remind him, as well as anybody out in the listening audience, that all that information, all that data comes from Marion County's financial audit reports that are prepared by the Marion County auditor and then filed with the auditor of the state of Ohio. So those figures for county employment are published by the county. They are real. You can go search the audit reports. They hired between 2021 and 2024, they hired 70 and a half additional employees, and that half is categorized as a part-time employee. And again, if you compare those financial audits with the surrounding counties, there have been unjustified increases in Marion County. And if you look further, which again, this analysis has all been done, go on a search, go on Swamp Fox, hit search, pull up, type county. You can see all this analysis. Department by department increases. So you can see where the increases have been. And they're in, over 100% increase in a matter of 5 years. I mean, inflation's tough, but it ain't that tough. So this stuff needs to be acknowledged. I think the people acknowledge it. The people see it. It's just the elected officials don't. And you can't dictate to an elected official necessarily, but you guys kind of control the purse strings. I mean, that's kind of your job, right? So I mean, sometimes you got to take a stand, and you got to be willing to push back. Is that fair, Tim?
Yeah, that's very fair. And I think too, this isn't going to come down to the one of the four of us winning this thing and we're going to change this thing by snapping our fingers. We cannot do this unilaterally. This has to be done with at least one other county commissioner. So, whoever wins this is going to have to get the other two commissioners on board with figuring out essential and non-essential. And I keep going back to that because obviously non-essential means, you can do without it. So if you strip things down and get it to the skinny to where, we can provide services and things like that. But like I said, it's not going to be done unilaterally, but it definitely has to be approached head on, and it has to be done. So this isn't we might get around to it. I think everybody's, their main concern is budgetary issues. When I was asked what the three main things that I thought were, and I put them as, budgetary issues, economic development, and then housing. Mm-hmm. So, economic or budgetary issues were obviously, number one or at the forefront. So, that has to be dealt with head on. And if there was, I will say one thing, and from experience, when all of this COVID money got released, there was I think a big false sense of we have money in our coffers. And so much of that money was passed out, and yeah. I could go into something with you with Clarendon Township that happened with us, and it was it was a situation where here's all this money, and I can go into that later, but I do think that the COVID money created a lot of unnecessary spending. I truly believe that. So
absolutely.
It really did. It did, and they shut that, that ARPA tap got shut off. But instead of being responsible and going into it with a fiscally conservative approach, what did they do? They said, money, 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 make it rain around here in Marion County. That's what they did. And now they're saying, oh, well, we based all of our budget on having these millions of dollars in ARPA funds. And, we hired all these people. Well, time to scale back, boys and girls, and that's what people need to consider here. I mean, it ain't rocket science. I know we have one commissioner that, and I'm not trying to dog, but it's really bad when they go on the air, say it publicly that, I don't understand finance and budgets. I'm just a social butterfly. That's my thing. I like to have a good cocktail with people and just socialize. I don't get this budget stuff, And then the comments were also made that, well, we want to employ people. I mean, is that a legitimate perspective to have, Tim, when you're talking about taxpayer dollars, is to say that one of the legitimate purposes of county government is to employ people?
Well, I think you have to employ people to cover the needs. But there again, I go back to essential and non-essential. So do you need to hire? I don't know how many people were hired in that period. I haven't seen those figures yet.
70 and a half.
Can I share with you something on this ARPA money, which is right at the tip of my tongue here, and I just want to let people know kind of how this worked. And I don't think a lot of people do know how it worked, and maybe you do. I shouldn't assume that. But when Clarendon Township, and I can only speak for Clarendon Township, but I'm sure the other townships were in the same position, we received monies, the ARPA funding, and we were told we were going to receive it. So when we received this money, they gave you certain parameters that you could, here's the hoop, jump through it. So you have to spend it in this manner. Well, the way they wanted it spent in the beginning was we didn't have the facilities to buy touchless toilets and touchless faucets and touchless hand sanitizer and touchless hand cleaner and all these things that they wanted you to go touchless with. So what we did with our first round of money, which was right around the $100,000 mark, Clarendon Township, we realized that we couldn't spend it. I wanted to buy AEDs for the churches in our township because we seem to have a lot of people that go down in church, older elderly people. So I thought that would be a good thing. Nope, you're not allowed to do that. So, okay. So we sub-granted that monies to the River Valley schools. That's the school that's in our township. So River Valley schools, we sub-granted it to them. in which they graciously took it, and they had places to spend it. And so that way, when we sub-granted that money, we weren't responsible for how that was spent. And that was an allowable expense that we could, give that to them. Well, then here comes 2 more rounds of the ARPA money. So when it came in, we had the talk and the debate about it, and let's give it back. Well, here's the issue with it that a lot of people didn't know. If Clarendon Township gave their money back to the mechanism that funded ARPA, which was the federal government, if we gave that money back, the first thing they would do was look at the other 14 townships in Marion County, and they would divide per capita or head count that money between the other 14 townships, and then the city of Marion would get more than half of it. You see where I'm going with that? Because it was a population controlled thing. So the city of Marion would get 56% of the money, and then the other 44% would be distributed amongst the other 14 townships. So what are we doing to our taxpayers in Clarendon Township? We're their taxpayers. They paid that money, or they're going to pay it back somehow. So we felt, well, then what can we do? Well, they've changed the parameters on what we could do. So we were looking at a building anyway. So we ended up putting a building up, which is a very nice structure. And that's how we spent the rest of that ARPA money, on something that's going to be here for another 100 plus years. And people, after I'm long gone, will be able to get some good out of it. So it was like a use it or lose it. And then the way you lost it was not going to be fair to our taxpayers. So that's a little something I wanted to tell people, because I don't think a lot of people knew how that worked.
That's a great
background. No, that's a good insight. Now that kind of begs the question, Tim. In general, and I know it's hard to generalize on such a topic, but what is your philosophy when it comes to grant money?
Here's my philosophy on grants. I think grants some of them are wasteful, but I also feel that these grants are going to be given out. So if you remember when I spoke before, I am a rotating member of First Consolidated Fire District, and I was an EMT for 11 years and ran for that district as a volunteer. We were not paid at that time. This was back in the 1990s and early 2000s. And anyway, I sat on the board there at the board meetings, and we just ran off of levies and those tax dollars then. When I got on as township trustee in 2008, the first thing we did was hire a new fire chief. And when the fire chief came in, which was Chief Clint Canterbury, we had talked about, this had already become a full-time station. So we had 9 full-timers and a chief. So we had 10 full-time firefighters. So to get the equipment up to date, to get our building up to date, and to make sure that our firefighters were safe and had decent equipment, there's all these grants out there. And the grants at that time, you had to know how to write the grant and the right verbiage and the wordage to put in to be able to secure those grants. Well, anyway, the board at that time, we decided to hire a grant writer, which I think at that time charges $600 to write a grant. But I think to this point in time, so you take 2008 to 2026, we have received over $3 million in grant money for First Consolidated Fire District. Now, this money is going to be given out to somebody. Now, if we're not standing there with our hand out and saying, hey, we need new radios, we need SCBAs, the equipment, we need, fire hose, we need turnout gear, we need all these things. And this lessens the burden on our local taxpayers. Now, I'm not saying it's not tax money, but I'm just saying they're going to give it to somebody. And if you're not writing a grant, then you're not going to get it. So I believe in that. And I think these grant writers, if you have good ones, I think they're worth their weight in gold. We turned down a safer grant for First Consolidated Fire District. It was, I believe, $2.3 million, and that was to hire 9 additional firefighters. We did not have the facilities to hire 9 more firefighters. Mm-hmm. Plus, at the end of that 3-year period, they expected you to hire these 9 firefighters on permanently because the grant money ran out. Well, that was going to take about 3 to 4 mils of levy money to sustain that, and that was unsustainable. So we actually had to turn that grant in. Pleasant Township Fire ended up getting a safer grant, and theirs has run out, and now they're dealing with having to fund, the additional personnel. So, yeah, I believe in grants. I think they're out there. If you might as well ask for them because they're going to give them to somebody. I hope that answers your question.
As long as it's a legitimate need and there is thought and consideration to whether or not it's sustainable and what will be the net impact of any strings that are attached. I mean, just like that. So,
yeah.
You said Pleasant Township's fire department got the grant and it funded them for so long, and now they have these people that they can't afford without going to the taxpayers and asking for them to cover the bill. So was that a wise decision?
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm not saying, there's definitely a need. The need's there. It's just the affordability. That's the problem. There isn't anybody, and I made this statement before, there's nobody alive today that probably, they're going to have to use EMS at some point in their life. Hopefully you'll never have to have a fire truck, putting out your house fire. But I almost guarantee you that a squad's going to be at your house someday picking you up. And I just want to make sure that's all funded. I thought I paid forward when I did it, and I'm hoping it's going to be there when I need it. So, so there are legitimate grants out there, and I think, you can, but they're going to give them all away probably. As ridiculous as some of it is, that's the sad fact of giving away that money, and it's taxpayers' money.
Yeah, and it's just an example of changes that are needed at the state level. Historically, local communities contain more of their tax revenues. Now, especially post 1972, when the state of Ohio implemented the state income tax, more and more money gets funneled to Columbus. And then Columbus, along with Washington, D.C., gets to pick winners and losers and put these money back to the local communities in the form of grants. But they're competitive grants, first of all. And second of all, a lot of them do come with pretty strenuous strings attached. And that may be in the form of money out of pocket. It may be other certain contingencies that need to be met. So grants can be a good tool if they're well thought out and they serve a legitimate purpose, because a lot of times
I agree.
They don't. I mean, that's just a fact. And I'll cite an example: transit, which I've criticized till I'm blue in the face for Marion area transit. I recall last year, the former director of transit saying that, I want to apply for this grant. And I said, what are you going to do with it? I don't know. I don't know yet what I'm going to do with it. It was for, it could be used for marketing transit services, and didn't really have a plan, and I just thought, well, shouldn't you, really be needing that? I mean, it's just like, we can maybe put some flyers out and put it out to, hey, people who have cars, go ride the bus. Nobody rides it. You have about six 6 riders for the entire transit fleet per hour of operation. Um, and I just thought, yeah, that's a perfect example of a grant that is
Yeah, and
unnecessary.
I think with any of these grants, you can, there's with any of these programs, you can look at the absurd part of it. But like I said, I dealt with fire department, so fire and EMS, and so everything that we put in for was a necessary evil. I mean, we had to have this equipment and radios and equipment for our firefighters and good equipment to work with. But um, yeah, there's probably grants out there now. Clarendon Township, as far as I know, we've never gone after any grants for the township, and one reason was, we're fortunate enough, and we've got a decent, evaluation of our tax base here that we have money, and we really, a lot of times we don't qualify for any type of grants. So, we're fortunate there. But yeah, fire department, definitely grants really help out a bunch.
Well, Tim, do you feel like I don't know if you've analyzed the county's budget to this extent, but do you feel like the county is over relying on grants? Or are they maybe underutilizing grants? To your point, if they're going to give it out, are they underutilizing? What have you ever dug into that?
I honestly, and I'm just telling you the honest to goodness truth, I have not dug into that budget to see where the funding's coming from as far as grant wise. All I can say is if it's legitimate and this grant funding is going to be out there, I think grant writers are worth their money. Mm-hmm. I truly believe that. But there again, frivolous grants, things that fund frivolous things, no. But I think if any type of source of income, because the county revenue sources are what? Sales tax, use tax, property user charges, and aid from the state. And I think when you take all those things and put them together, if that's still not taking care of the problem, then you go back to what we talked to before, essential and non-essential. And if you can get grants, that would be helpful. So I think there's, I would have to look into it. I don't know. I did hear that they have a grant writer that they hired. Is that the truth, or I really don't know for sure. But
they hired one for the sheriff's department, and it's like a law enforcement
not for the county commissioners
writer. Yeah, the county commissioners did. And I think that was back in October, November or something, I think, is when that position was posted, and it was filled right around that same time, maybe December. I don't know what kind of success. I mean, we're here almost in May, what they're up to with that. But, it's the world that we live in. Personally, I would like to go back to the old days where more of your money stayed local instead of being confiscated by the state government and then redistributed as it sees fit. But that's the socialist world that we live in, the big government world that we live in, Tim. So what are we going to do about it? We can't do anything about it, right?
Sad but true.
Well, I think we've seen with the city of Marion, like to Tim's point about grant writers being worth their weight in salt. The city of Marion has definitely benefited. If you're looking at just pure revenue standpoint, their grant writer has brought in a decent amount of revenue for them that they would not have had otherwise. And especially with their fiscal caution season that they're in right now, that's probably been a pretty beneficial thing for them.
Yeah, and I honestly have not stuck my nose in the city of Marion's financial issues. I haven't looked at their budgets, budgetary things. I do believe that Marion County and Marion City. If we get economic development going, that's going to help the coffers. But there again, we need to go back to spending and look at all those issues right there. So the grant, there again, the grant writing, if it's not frivolous stuff, you don't want to become dependent on it though. And I think that that's a major issue with grants. You probably if you live by them, you'll probably die by them. So, because at some point they're going to change it or cut them off completely. So, or change the rules, and that's usually what they do is change the rules, and then it's not beneficial anymore.
What does economic development look like, though, to you, Tim? I mean, we've seen in the past, first of all, government does not create economic development. And we've seen private public partnerships that have also struggled. What are your thoughts on that? Like, as a commissioner, what would you like to see be done?
Well, I think with the economic development part of it in Marion County, I think what we need to do is ramp up private investment. And I think we can go along with public funding and private funding together, do some projects. I think at the forum, I had mentioned something about the city of Findlay and that county up there. And they have a board, and I'm going to check into that a little bit more. I've got bits and pieces of it, but it really sparked my interest on how they brought, I will call them the movers and the shakers and some of the money people up there in Findlay and Hancock County, and merged together and just did a lot of great economic development. So I think too, at one point, to go back to Marion County, and I know in Clarendon Township, we, the township and trustees and the zoning commission for Clarendon Township, we rezoned 220 some acres, which was the Gruber farm. And to get it, to get that out of the way, as far as, if somebody was looking, we zoned it industrial, which is still being used as agricultural, but that's fine. But you lose that hurdle of how's it zoned. So we got that out of the way, and then we zoned 50 plus acres on the east side of State Route 98 to take it from office to institutional to commercial or business one. So I think, you have to prepare for economic development. I just feel that once we get infrastructure to that area, and we're looking at sewers, and that can be done with a public and a private investment type thing. I think that you're going to see that take off. Jaguar is doing a phenomenal job, and Sika Corporation, Jaguar built that state-of-the-art warehouse, which is all done robotically, and Sika Corporation spec'd it, and then Jaguar built it, and so that's a pretty neat partnership right there. But they don't employ a lot of people, but still, it's a start. So I just think that Marion County needs to be promoted. I think economic development, you take Clarendon Township, you take Marion Township, you take Pleasant Township, Richland Township, that whole, what I call crescent through there. I believe that these townships should get together and create like an economic development group representative from each one of those townships, and figure out how they want to promote these townships, what each one of these townships has to offer. Clarendon Township has much to offer as far as, what the industry. We have Silverline and we have Reconserve, and we have Jaguar, which is great. And, right now I think Lee Sisler's doing some things with the old GTE building. I think we're going to see some positive things there. But there again, we need some investment. We need some infrastructure. And then I think you'll start to see things, turn around. But I think the economic development could be married through those 5 or 6 townships. And I'm not excluding the rest of them, the other ones. I'm just talking about the ones that, right now have, are in the area of growth, or what I feel is going to be substantial growth here in the near future. Mm-hmm. So I think promoting is one of the main things. And that's one of the main things I want to do when I get in there as commissioner, is I think the biggest thing to do is promote Marion County, Marion City. We've got a lot of great things. And I think I went back to talk about the Marion Area Chamber of Commerce when they had the key initiative committee. And I think I had said that Pam Hall is a great friend of mine, and she was, and she had a great vision for Marion City and Marion County. And she had a gentleman come in, which was Bill Hudnut, who was the guy that put Indianapolis, the city of Indianapolis, together. He merged, I think, 20-some townships into one, and they built the dome over there in Indianapolis. It just turned out great. So anyway, Bill Hudnut came and spent, I think, 3 days here in Marion City and Marion County. And I had mentioned this at the forum. He said the only thing Marion lacks, he said they have transportation, they have the workforce, they have the roads, the railroads. He said they need an attitude adjustment. They need an attitude change. Yeah, and I know I said that before, but that always stuck with me. And he was a big promoter and said, hey, if you can change people's outlook on things, you can make a lot of good things happen. But if I can touch on it here, Pam had something that she had said, Pam Hall, about Marion County. And she said, she asked a question, could Marion County be more efficient, more effective, and more taxpayer friendly? And then I think she asked too, if we were to create Marion City and Marion County today, would we have city, county, and township governments with 29 political subdivisions? Would we have 10 fire services? Would the city health department and county health department, would we have that separate? Would we have 5 school districts? Would Marion be a charter city or a statutory city? So she was asking all these questions. And I think if you go to the city health department and the county health department, that's already been merged. Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that she was saying, how can we change Marion County to become, more efficient, more effective, and promote business in Marion County. So I think those were all very pertinent things that she had brought up. And, she had a great vision for Marion County and Marion City.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have to have the proper attitude, but you also have to have the proper historical perspective. Now, you were born and raised in Lima, and I think you moved to Marion area, in the early 70s?
Well, it was 1970.
1970.
Yes.
Graduated from
moved here.
River Valley.
Originally from Lima, but we moved. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Tim.
Okay, but yeah, I was born in Lima and raised there until halfway through 5th grade. I always laugh. I had to ride a city bus when I went to kindergarten, and it cost us 10 cents to get on in the morning and 10 cents to get on at night to go back home. So, when they talk about busing and all that stuff, it always makes me kind of laugh. But anyway, we left Lima and we moved to Terre Haute, Indiana, and I lived there for about 3.5 years. And in 1970, we moved to Marion. And my father had a job at Certified Fire Appliances. He was in the welding industry. And so anyway, we moved here to Marion, and Marion in 1970 was, I mean, it was an unbelievably industrialized powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Marion Power Shovel, Quaker Oats, Bronze Tell. You had Whirlpool, you had Eaton Corporation. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So we lived here until 1973, and then we moved to Findlay, and I spent 1 year in Findlay, and then I left home and right after my junior year of high school, and moved back to Marion and finished out. But yeah, Marion was a place I called home basically since 1970 minus 1 year. But yeah, Marion was just an incredible place at that time. The Marion Cadets, that was one of the most awesome things I'd ever seen in my life. And I don't know, you're probably a little young to remember it, but it was just, Marion was packed. The city was packed, and it was just a phenomenal thing. And of course that's going away, but everything changes, and that's the way it is. But
Tim, I remember my grandpa telling me.
That's my.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I remember, to your point, I remember my grandpa telling me growing up that in the 70s, Marion had so many jobs that you could lose your job on a Monday, go get another job, and start a new job all in the same day.
Yes.
And then,
yes.
Nowadays there's so much red tape. Like, you're not starting the same day, you apply. In fact, there's this whole thing now where people are applying for jobs and everyone's saying they're being ghosted, where employers just aren't responding. Or, you do an interview and then you never hear back. I mean, that's just how far we've come from those days. So I just thought I would bring that point up because it was just interesting what you were saying, how many jobs we had back then compared to what we have now. I think we should do a deep dive on that. Cody, what do you think? One of these days.
I mean,
I think you will be amazed. I think you will be blown away at the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stuff I've covered. I've written on historical comparisons, economic, comparisons and stuff. And that's the thing. You have to have that perspective. You have to say, okay, we've acknowledged that we had many more opportunities. We had a much more diverse and stronger economy in the 1970s than what we have today. So what does that mean? That means we have been in decline for better part of 50 years. You have to look and you have to say, what changed? What policies changed? And certainly you can't discount the impact of international trade deals and policies at the federal level. But when you are honest about it, you say, well, your local policies can keep you afloat even in times of international or national turmoil and competition.
Yeah.
And it's the tax policy. You want to look at what I had somebody comment on an article I wrote today. Well, look at Marysville and look at Delaware, from economic development and everything. Well, yeah, look at Marysville, look at Delaware. They have a lower sales tax than Marion. They have a lower municipal income tax. So it's not rocket science. You want to look at who you mentioned Findlay over in Hancock County.
Mm-hmm.
Look at their income tax rate. Look at their sales tax rate. Look at your one of your hometowns of Lima in Allen County.
Yeah.
Same thing. So we got to be realistic, and we have to say our tax policies that have sprung up over the past 50 years in Marion County have hindered economic development. So how do we balance that between providing government services, being able to afford things, legitimate needs, and making the environment here competitive and attractive for private capital? Because there is a correlation. I've looked into way too many financial reports, GDP, by different categories, uh, and did a comparative analysis with tax rates and tax policies. And you got to be competitive because government in itself will not create sustainable economic development. And we got to get back to what made Marion great, back when you could actually make a living. And I criticize, you look at what's number one category, Tim, in economic development in Marion County right now. If you were to say specific types of like businesses, like retail, and if it's retail, what kind of retail?
Okay,
I'll give
so
you
so
a hint.
you're asking
I'll just tell you
you're
the
asking
answer. It's vape shops, and these gambling halls that are springing up
well,
everywhere. I mean,
well,
honestly,
everybody's got to have
drive
a place.
down, drive down 95, drive down Delaware Avenue, 423, and look at these, businesses that used to, man, it used to be a shoe store. Now it's a vape shop. Oh, what's this? Now it's a vape shop. Oh, there's a gambling hall over here. Like, and why is that? Is it because culturally, demographically, Marion, has declined to the point where that's what everybody wants, is just to be vaping all the time and getting their nicotine fix, or gambling or whatever? Or is it because that's one of the few businesses that can actually turn a profit? If you look at profit margins in the vape business, they're pretty decent, 5, 7%. Whereas a lot of your other businesses, like, why don't we have any grocery stores in the city of Marion? Well, grocery stores have a average industry average um, profit margin of about 2%. You got a 2% municipal income tax. So are they going to locate in your business in your city if you have that? No, they're not. They're going to go somewhere else that doesn't. Go out in the county. So we got to look at that kind of stuff. And I don't know, but I think you're on the right track on looking at areas that are successful, that are of similar demographics, like Findlay, like Lima. Look at Butler County. Butler County's booming. Um, Delaware, Marysville. But look at every aspect of it, of their economy and their tax policy, size of government, that sort of thing. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and I think today, if I was going to start my own business today, it would be very easy for me to choose a direction. And I've told so many young people this that I talk to. If you want to be in business today, learn the trades. We have to go back to, we need electricians, we need roofers, we need framers, we need HVAC people. All these things are very important. I could go out today, and I'm just telling you, I've said this many times, I could go out today with $10 in my pocket, and I could buy a bottle of Windex and a couple rolls of paper towels, and I guarantee you I could put $100 bill in my pocket by the end of the day. So there's got to be desire to go out and create. So yeah, some of the main businesses, like you were talking about the vape shops, and I kind of laughed about that. But if those things are turning a profit, it's I guess for a reason. But one thing I looked at too is, if you look at 95, you look at that corridor, and I went to Marion City Council last night. I didn't get into the meeting because my grandson was being inducted into the oh shoot, I just drew a blank.
NFL draft.
I'm sorry.
Was it the NFL draft? I think you was posted.
No, that was my nephew.
Oh, okay.
That got in that, but National Honor Society.
Okay.
So my grandson got inducted into that last night, and by the time I got out of there and got over to the city council meeting, I couldn't make it. But it was rainy and nasty. And where I'm going with this is, I was coming back out of Marion, and I'm coming out 95, and I could not believe how dark and dingy. I mean, it was raining, I know that, but there was no lights anywhere. I mean, it's just a big, wide, dark roadway, and I'm looking left, I'm looking right, and I'm thinking, man, what a shame. It just looks dreary and looks dingy. So I think that corridor was not really set up very well as far as service roads, things like that. So, here again, there's I think a few things. Why are so many businesses right through there not making it? And if you look at the access to get to them and to get back out of them, it's really not done very well. So, I think that's one of the contributing factors to some of these businesses not making it. Where the old White Castle used to be. I think the third business is in there now.
Yeah.
And
that location is cursed. I swear that location is cursed.
It probably is cursed. It very well might be. Well, here's my thought is on the topic of economic development is I feel like we need somebody who is a good salesman, because I feel like we've meted ourselves to death, so to speak. There's been a lot of committees over the years, a lot of organizations have come together, blue ribbon committees. Pam, like you said, Pam Hall had spearheaded a lot of things. And it just seems like it's always evolved. And, we had Marion Can Do, and then, that's not really around now. So, and even when we had them, I think most people agree there could have been a better effort to put Marion on the map, to sell us. And I think that's what we need. I feel like you need a good, strong planning committee, of course, but then you need somebody to take those ideas and be able to formulate that to the public, who can go and meet with business executives and potential entrepreneurs and other organizations to draw that attention, draw that talent, draw those organizations into Marion. Because without that, at the end of the day, we can plan and talk all day long, but then we're not really accomplishing anything. What are your thoughts about that? Do you think there should be another economic development director out there, or do you think it's something else? What does it look like to you?
It looks like to me, economic development director would be great. I just think that the commissioners have to get on board with promoting, Marion County and the city. So an economic developer or director would be great. But I think they have to be, like you said, they have to go out and they have to sell what we have to offer. Because I think so many businesses can go here and there and everywhere else. And I honestly, Marion has a lot to offer.
Yeah.
And an economic development specialist, I don't know if you would call him a specialist or not, but yeah, that has to be done to promote what this county and city have to offer. So, I'm not hammering anybody,
right,
any of the commissioners right now or anything like that. I'm just saying, if something's not working, you have to step back and go in a different direction. So yeah, I think until you try something, and try changing up something, you're never going to get any change.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, they had that plan. There was going to be a position that was funded partially by the county and partially by the city for an economic development director, and they're both broke. So they both put the kibosh on that idea. So, we've got some serious realities kind of to circle back to the very first question with the budget. And I don't know, I'm just going to spitball here. How about we encourage, we have the cardinal statues in downtown Marion. Encourage all the vape shops to install neon signs. It could be really, really cool with vape coming out, neon, and we become renowned as the capital of vape shops.
Excuse me.
in the world. In the world. You drive down 95, it's not dark anymore because you got all these vape shops with their neon signs. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there. Just put it out there, Tim.
Well, God bless the entrepreneur but whatever it takes to make your money, as long as it's not illegal or immoral. I
right,
get for it.
right.
But yeah,
Well,
I can see
we've been
he's got
going here for
issue with
about
the picture.
an hour and 15 minutes with Republican primary candidate for Marion County Commissioner Tim Mooney. Now, Tim, we'll kind of wrap it up here shortly. We know that you're a busy guy and probably an exhausted guy. You see a lot of signs. There's a lot of Mooney signs out on the fruited plains of Marion County. So the election coming up here on Cinco de Mayo, on May 5th. Where are you going to be spending the next few days here that remain in this election?
Well, I'm going to be out. I'm going to do some door-to-door stuff, some more of it. And like I said, I got my mailers out and some of those things done. So I've talked to a lot of the township officials. I've talked to, I was over at Green Camp. I did get a chance to talk to them over at Tully Township. Was it Pleasant? I've hit most of the townships. A few of them I haven't been able to make because our township meetings fall on the same time. So that's been tough. But yeah, I believe it or not, this is a busy time for my business, and I'm honestly I'm going to be working. Last year or 2 years ago, when I ran on election night, I got home at about 9 o'clock. And I had no clue. I did not know what was going on with the election. And I got a call from John Matthews, and he said, hey, don't give up the ship. Try it again next time. So at that point, I knew I obviously did not win. But I'm just one of those people. Once I go out, once I've done everything I can do, you just put it in God's hands, and it's His will be done, because I've done all I can do, and then the people are going to make the decision. So I can sit and fret about it, or I can go to my business and make money. And I have a full day booked at my shop, and so I'm probably just going to be working on election day. Of course, I'm going to go vote. I believe in that. I voted early the last general election, but I usually believe that you vote on election day. So I'll cast my ballot on May the 5th, and I hope a lot of other people cast their ballots too. I'd like to see a big turnout for this primary. We need one.
How do you think turnout's going to be? Do you think it'll be stronger than 24, 22? What do you think?
Yeah, it's usually in the low 20s, percentile, which voter apathy disgusts me. And here's what I think on that. I think of the amount of people who died to give us the right to do that. And then when we don't even acknowledge that or do that, I think it's disrespecting all those people that gave us the right to do that. So that's just my feelings on it. Everybody has their own feelings on it, but voter apathy drives me nuts. And to see 21% or 25% of the registered voters voting, they have to remember that 25% is making the decision for 100%. So that's not real good representation, but that seems to be how it is.
Right. And now you have so much more opportunity to vote, with these early voting hours and absentee and everything else. I mean, you really don't have an excuse not to participate.
No, and I will tell you that I'm the guy that promotes we need a national election day. I'm a believer in that. I think it's important enough that when we have a general election, everybody gets a day off of pay, or however it's going to work out, and everybody votes. That way, nobody has an excuse not to vote.
Right.
And I believe it's that important that we need to do that. And I don't like mail-in voting. I think there's too much room for error and cheating and fraud. And so early voting, I'm not a big fan of, but I understand, Some people want it, some people like it. I think it's done probably as well as it can be done in our state. And so, I don't have a lot of reservations about the early voting. The mail-in voting, I don't like at all. I think that should be done away with completely.
I'm with you on that. I think I'd get rid of early voting. If not, have it be Monday and Tuesday or something. That's it. Um, because you can get there. You can get to the polls and vote. But yeah, it's coming up. It's coming up. I think that race, the commissioner race, is going to be definitely one to watch. Also, the 86th district state rep race, and then yeah, we've got some levies in the county to keep an eye on. So it should be interesting. And folks, if you haven't voted yet, make sure you get out there and cast your ballot. But it's not as simple as just voting. We want people to be informed. And I think that's
Yes.
the other really big challenge culturally in this country is the fact that people are willfully ignorant. Um, they go in there and they may say, I like this. This name sounds better, or oh, this is a woman and I'm a woman, so I'm going to vote for a woman, or the reverse could be true too. Um, or Republican and Democrat and whatnot. Do your homework. We live in the
Exactly.
age of social media. We live in the age of any amount of knowledge is available at your fingertips. You know, put it to use. Do some research. Research the issues. Research the candidates. Go in and make an informed decision on election day. I mean,
Amen.
and that's why we're doing things like this show. Is that we want people to know the candidates, know the issues. So we've had a really nice conversation with Tim Mooney. We've had many other candidates on our former show, The Watchman's Report, and that's our commitment to you is to continue to bring um, these candidates to you and to ask them sometimes difficult questions, but if nothing else, just their perspective on the issues and allow you to get to know them. So we hope that you have gotten to know Tim Mooney better tonight. And uh, if you have any questions, I know Tim would be more than happy to have a conversation with you to
Yes.
share his opinions and his perspectives. So Tim, how do they get a hold of you? And if they want a yard sign, I don't know if you have maxed out the
I'm
sign
maxed out on
supply
yard.
yet.
I have no more yard signs to give out. I still have a couple laid back for some places that I need to put them right at the very end. But they can get a hold of me on Facebook. They can do that, or they can contact. I'll give you my cell number. They can call my cell number. I published that. I've been a township trustee for 19 years. They can dial 740-360-3109. And that will get me on the cell phone. Like I said, you can get me on Facebook. My business is a muffler center in Caledonia. I've been there 47, going into my 48th year now. And that number is 419-845-3730. Had that same number for 48 years. So they can contact me that way.
Quite a stretch.
Yes. And hey, I want to thank you, Robert and Cody, for allowing me to do this tonight. And I want to end with one thing here, if I may.
Yeah.
If we have time. I had spoken with a couple of the candidates, and I told them that I don't know enough about the other candidates to sit there and promote them. I can only promote myself. So I said I don't mudsling. I don't assassinate character. And I think this this primary has been very well done. So I'm proud of the other three candidates. I haven't seen a lot of mudslinging. Like I said, I try to promote myself, and but anyway, I don't feel like I've been dragged through any kind of mud or anything. So I think it's been a pretty well run primary. So I'm proud of that.
Good.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's been a testament to the character of each of the candidates, and it's refreshing sometimes nowadays in this Wild West show that we call American politics. So,
Oh
hats
man.
off to the four Republican primary candidates for Marion County Commissioner, and hats off to Tim Mooney for joining us tonight. So, folks, be sure to check out uh, his Facebook page. He doesn't have a candidate page, so you would have to search Tim Mooney. And I think all your political stuff is public, if I recall, Tim. Right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So be sure to check that out and give him a call. Give you his cell phone number, or stop by his shop there, uh, just to the south of the village of Caledonia. He's been there for 48 years. So, Tim, thank you so much for joining us here tonight on the Patriot Report. And we're going to have an election night show. I don't know if you're going to be installing mufflers that night, but if you want to hop on for 15 minutes or so just to say hello to the folks, we're going to be running, probably burning the midnight oil that night. So we would love to have you hop on just to just to say hi to everybody on that very important night. So if you're free, um, be sure to do so. And yeah, so we're gearing up. We're counting down the days for the big Cinco de Mayo primary election. So be sure to tune in here on Ohio Patriots Network on the Patriot Report on election night. We're probably going to kick things off at 7:30. We're going to have a lineup of special guests. Hopefully, Tim will join us that night. There are going to be other candidates that are going to be popping in to say hello, give us some thoughts, and hopefully we'll get some results from the Marion County Board of Elections prior to like 11 o'clock, which seems to be uh, their standard nowadays. Is just to keep pushing it back, pushing it back. They're just trying to make us like freak out because we've been on the air for like 5 hours. So hopefully that doesn't happen this year and we get some results early on. But be sure to tune in, folks. And for Robert Landon, for our special guest, Tim Mooney, I am Cody Higley, and this has been the Patriot Report. And remember, folks, a patriot is always vigilant. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.